Hi everyone. So I decided to look and see what I'm using in my current virtual classroom and just see really how accessible it is. I'm a little bit limited to what I'm allowed to be using, so I only have a couple of options that I was able to choose from. One of the things that I am using on a weekly basis, even daily for some of my kids, is the Google Docs because we are responsible for making sure that all of our information that's going out to parents is in a PDF file, and Google Docs is a lot easier for you to convert it into a PDF. It also makes it look a little bit more closer to what our Google Doc actually looks like. So we've been using that, and I was looking to see exactly through the guidelines that we have here, really how engaging it looks and how it looks as I'm looking at representation. And I'm actually kind of at the point where I'm looking at both of mine because I teach writing and science. So that means that I'm giving out more than one document every single week, depending upon who I'm meeting with and what we're doing. So this is an example of our ELA choice board that we give to our students. So we focus on reading and writing. Our school district actually separates reading and writing into two different classrooms if we are a group of three, which we are. So I was more looking at just overall what it looks like, what the representation is. So I did determine, obviously has some color here for the representation of engagement as well. You can see that it divides the reading and the writing with the color. Have a little bit of pictures, but not too distracting. I didn't really want things to be overly distracting from what the actual purpose of this was. Also, the directions are in a different color, so that is able to point it out. They can also see the due date or when they're supposed to be working on this, which is a little bit helpful. So also it's in a table format. I did determine though that this format is a little bit hard using the accessibility feature. Obviously underneath the tools, you would use accessibility settings and you would click those on, which again, you can use any of these. But I did actually use it on this and it was a little bit difficult. It really struggled on being able to actually read what was here. I tried highlighting everything and it really wasn't reading the way that it should have been reading in comparison to me using the other document that I'm about to talk about soon. But it did read the bullets though correctly, but I had to just kind of do it in a different fashion. It did read the link and it did read it as a link. So it was able to identify that this was a link and wanted you to click upon it. And also, as I was going through, it did have the ability to be able to see where you were on the keyboard and things like that. So it does have the keyboard accessibility. I just think that this table, as it is actually formatted, is a little bit difficult for people who would not be able to read it. So using that text feature, that alternative text, would really be difficult for this actual document. But overall, I think that it has the color features and things like that that would be really helpful for the students who'd be looking at and being able to follow along with it. And then also to mention is the fact that this also would not really be ideal for an alternative text because of how it reads with the table. It would be reading from left to right. And this could be very confusing to the student because it would say reading first, and then it would say writing, and then it would go into the must-dos of reading. So really, ideally, this would have to be in a different representation because it's going to be confusing to the actual listener because they're going to be thinking that their reading homework is really their writing homework, and then they might be confused why they have other must-dos even though they just read upon it, so they might get confused which is which. And then for the engagement factor of this document, so with reading, we didn't always give as many options in comparison to writing. If you look over here, we have a lot of bullets. So one of the actual assignments that we had them basically choose how they wanted to do the assignment. Now, they didn't choose which assignment they wanted to do, they just had to choose exactly how they wanted to do it. So we did give them a little bit of choice when it came to that, but we still had chosen what the overall objective was that we wanted them to be able to do, which was, in this case, create a setting. They could just use different things that are around the house, and they were able to give it to us in different ways, which we did also say about how we wanted them to either take a picture of it or submit it through Google Classroom or email, whatever way was easier for them to be able to submit it. But so overall, this one I would say would be the engagement factor, being able to choose what they wanted to do. They definitely had the color, and it definitely had the keyboard accessibility, but the keyboard accessibility would not be ideal for a student who is not able to be able to actually read the text itself. So then after I was done with my writing one, I actually went over to see what my science one would look like. And as you can see, it's very different. It doesn't really have any of the color whatsoever, so that would really be something that would need to be changed. Also, this one though, I did do the alternative text feature, and it did read it correctly. So it was able to go from left to right, and it absolutely made sense. One thing that probably would need to be changed is that we did give the options here for the students to be able to do, but we did not include them as bullets. So a student might be a little bit confused that there are 3 options here, but there's no bullets indicating that each one of them is different than the other. So that might be something that would need to be modified or changed for a person who, again, needs the alternative text. Another thing is that when I was reading the links, they are here for the actual student to click on and be able to go to the website that tells you how to use it. But it actually just read it. It did not read it as an actual link. It did not say that link starts and then said what the link was. It basically just read it as its actual text. So that might be something that is going to be very confusing to the student because they might not know how to do it, but we actually did give you the link to be able to figure it out. So that would need to be something that has to change as well. So overall, this one would definitely need to have some changes done to it. It is very readable, but although it being readable, it's not going to be the most friendly for a alternative text feature. Again, it would have to have those listings here. The listings down here absolutely had no problem reading. It would read the number and say what the different options were. But there also might need to have some color for those students who are not able to figure out, okay, this is different. The task is different than the materials and things like that. That would also need to be changed. But overall, this one is able to be read correctly. And then the last thing that I decided to look at was my Google Classroom. So I do actually have this as a different color on purpose. Each one of my classrooms actually is the color of the classroom, a homeroom classroom. We have 3 different classrooms. One of them is blue, one of them is yellow, and then my classroom is green, hence why I have the green here. So that basically not only helps me, but it helps the students see that they're in the correct classroom because they're using the green background, which tells them, okay, yes, I'm in the right one because I'm in the green homeroom. So as I was using the alternative text feature, it definitely read everything correctly. If I would click on any of the, even the streams here, it would read it no problem. Up here at the toolbar, it would do the same exact thing. I had the classwork where I have all of my assignments that are given to students. And over here on the side, it's kind of an easy navigation tool for them to use. And I do stress this in my class because with me teaching more than one subject at a time, it can become very difficult to be able to basically have them follow along. I not only teach writing, but then I also have my vocabulary and then I have spelling for those students. I also, at some points, I have the social studies section because our writing also incorporates social studies as well that they're learning in a different classroom. So this can really become easy for them to use and be able to navigate, especially with me introducing other topics that are not necessarily just devoted to writing and science. So what I did do is I did click on an actual feature. I did have it read it to me and it read it to me in no problems whatsoever. So this would definitely be useful. Even as I was looking at the assignment, I went to the instructions and I was able to read the links too, and it read it correctly. It said that it was a link to a Google Doc, and it said what the name of the Google Doc was for each one of them. So overall, this one I would also say is very useful, and it would be ideal for a person who is trying to use alternative text. But I did notice that one of the things that might be lacking when it comes to just Google Classroom as itself, is that for some of my assignments, I did give the students options as to what writing assignment they wanted to do. For example, I had my week 8 where they were able to choose one of the writing prompts, and I gave them 3 options. The only thing is, though, I'm not able to use bullets. So this might be a little bit confusing to an alternative text because it's going to be a 1, a 2, a 3, but it's not going to be in a bullet form, and they might not be able to decipher that. I'm not asking them to do number 1, number 2, and number 3. I'm asking them to do one or the other between the 3. So that, again, that's just because it's not really an option when it comes to how you're able to format it. But overall, I think that they might, if they actually were able to listen to the whole entire text, they might be able to figure out that it says choose one of the prompts, and then number 1, 2, and 3. Okay, those are my prompts that I need to be able to read. So for Google Classroom, I would say that this one's definitely alternative text friendly. It has the color format that I'm able to use. As I said, I use green because that's my homeroom, and it actually does change the buttons and everything around it to the color that your actual classroom is set up with. It does have the headings, as you can see here, but then it also has a navigation tool off to the side to help them see, okay, where am I at? But if I click on it, it'll go right to it, and then students don't actually have to look through. And then this actual feature basically gets rid of any of distractions or things like that, because the students are only responsible for doing whatever is there, and they're not able to have too many different things. Now, granted, I could see the navigation bar becoming a little bit distracting just because there's so many different things. But I think that just is really to the fact of the classroom itself. It's not really devoted to basically the feature or the actual device tool that you would be using. It also has a spot for you to have your goals and objectives, hence why I have the directions here and things like that. I basically tell them what the goal and the objective is for every single one of them. So overall, I would say that the Google Docs, most of them are okay. Again, this one, only thing that would need to be changed is probably the way that it's formatted, just because it's not able to read as nicely as the other one is. It has a lot of other features though with the color and things like that. This one, again, would need more color, just a little bit of listing, but this one actually reads correctly. And then the Google Classroom, this one has no difficulty when it comes to reading. So all of them, though, again, have the goal and objectives of what they're supposed to be doing with their LEQs and things like that, that we should be making sure that they understand. Try to have as many things as possible to help them keep their focus and know what they're supposed to be doing and not get distracted. And then again, some of the items that when we were able to, we wanted to give them that individual choice. Some of the items, though, you just aren't able to do that depending upon whatever the LAQ and the standard is for that time. Thank you.